Southampton was once called the gateway to the world, as passengers coming from ships in the harbour would fuel tourism and immigration in the city. And hidden history walks tempt visitors with stories that often lead to the truth being rather stranger than fiction. To tell us a little bit more is a Green Badge guide, Geoffrey Wheeler. Well, Geoffrey, thank you so much for coming in. And as we said there, we've got some fantastic kind of stories that you unlock on your hidden history walks.
Well, if I was taking the Titanic walk, the first thing I would say is that I can only give you the tip of the iceberg in the 90 minutes that we have to go on the walk. But yes, the main point about the millions of people that have been in and out of Southampton, and as you know, Southampton's the second largest cruise port in the world, over 450, in Europe, over 450 visits every year. It's the second largest container port in the UK. We had a ship in with 20,600 containers recently, largest ship in the world. Nearly 800,000 new cars every year. So it's still a big business. And Southampton is really still a port in a city and a city in a port. So you can just imagine, with the millions of people who've been through since, before medieval times, since Anglo-Saxon times, is the stories are just legion. There is so much history to talk about, and just repeating history is okay, but telling stories about history makes it much more interesting to people who come on our walks.
And that's the thing, is these walks aren't just for the passing tourists. They're called hidden history walks because actually Southampton residents can learn something about where they live as well.
A typical comment is we had one from a lady who brought her children. We call it ghastly, grim and gory. We're talking about all the executions and bloodthirsty things that happened. And she actually said that she was staggered by what she learnt, and she said it was the best £5 she'd ever spent bringing her children on it. And that's quite typical. Residents say, we didn't have a clue. We've walked through here so many times and we didn't have any idea of this sort of thing happened.
And actually, on some of the walks as well, you explore areas of the city that maybe people wouldn't get to see ordinarily. So I believe you were saying to my colleague earlier, you actually carry some keys to some of the underground areas of Southampton.
One of the great things about being a Green Badge guide is we're seen as local experts, and we have a great relationship with the council, who do their best for history. But yes, it means that we can enter into the vaults. We obviously notify them before we go in, get permission to do it. But Southampton has a hidden history underneath the streets. There are around 46 vaults that we know about, and actually there's a recount going on at the moment. Because in the time of Henry II, Southampton became the main point of importation of wine. And so wine's much better preserved, stored at temperatures of between 10 and 12 degrees. So a huge number of vaults were built. And say, some we still don't know much about.
Wow. And we mentioned at the beginning there as well that you are a Green Badge guide. So what does that exactly mean? Obviously we can see a nice big green badge there, but what do you have to do to kind of get that certification?
Well, I had to train for it over about 18 months. And of course, with a Green Badge guide, you're generally people interested in their own history. There are other guides, there are Blue Badge guides, for example, who are professional, earn their living, certainly in the summer months, out of guiding, taking people out to Stonehenge and Windsor and these sort of places, usually coach parties. Most of the people in Southampton are retired or businessmen who have got some time available and are interested in particular subjects and have spent most of their life in Southampton. So we're preaching a story not only of the history, but also a welcome to people when they come, because Southampton's a busy place. And all the people are going around doing their own business, and spending huge amounts of money on historic artifacts is not one of the main priorities of the city. You know, we have social needs to look after people now, not just people who were here years ago. So yes,
I was going to say though, surely in the process of doing kind of the tour guides, you've probably learned some weird and wonderful things over that time. So what would you say has been kind of the most interesting, unusual thing you've learned about Southampton?
Well, some people say to us that history is bunk. I think Henry IV is misquoted as saying history is bunk. I think he really meant was if we don't take notice of it. But so, for example, the Black Death came to Southampton in 1348. It's not a fact we're particularly proud of, and we're quite pleased that some other places have also claimed the first to bring this horrible disease in, which went on for hundreds of years. But the strange truth is that a man in Colorado in America died from the Black Death in the last 18 months.
Really?
And there's very few people know that, although it's been in the newspapers. Colorado is apparently a hot spot of Black Death. And if you don't report the symptoms, you can die, and that's what happened to this particular guy. So if you relate that to the reason that people died, a lot of people had really poor diets. In medieval times, the antibodies were not strong enough to resist diseases. That's not the only reason. Obviously, the disease was transmitted by fleas moving from dead rats onto humans. But it's a modern story as well as an ancient story.
Wow. Well, it certainly sounds like you are a fountain of knowledge, particularly kind of about Southampton. But if people wanted to come along and have a go at one of your walking tours themselves, what would they need to do?
It's very simple. We have a website, www.csouthampton.co.uk. But in the winter, in fact, we're just coming to the end of the winter period, so there's a walk on Saturday at 1:30. I happen to be taking it. A hidden history walk, going around the walls and the vaults and whatever. But from April the 1st, from Sunday, we have walks at 10:30 in the morning and at 1:30 in the afternoon. Now, so you can just turn up for those, and that's the way that people usually approach it. Because it's the 100th anniversary of the formation of the RAF, I'm doing a special walk on Sunday morning starting at 10:30, right next to the old Spitfire factory at Woolston Millennium Gardens, where we're going to be talking about some of the fantastic things that happened with the relationship between the area and the RAF. Not many people know that the only Victoria Cross won by a fighter command pilot in World War II was actually won over Southampton Water.
Oh, wow.
So it's stories like that and other stories which I'll be telling. So if they come on hidden history tours, then they can, and they have relations. I quite often have people who say, my grandfather was doing this or other. Then it's great because we have then an interaction, and I learn as much generally from the people who come on the walks as I do from the information I give them.
Fantastic. Well, Geoffrey, I'm afraid that's all the time we have for now. Hopefully maybe one day we'll come on one of your walks and see for ourselves, but thank you so much for coming in.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you.